Listen closely to the sound of seeking. It is a quiet murmur, often lost in the clamor of our carefully constructed lives, yet it is the oldest, most persistent sound in the human heart. It is the sound of a spirit reaching, of a consciousness acknowledging something vast and eternal, something far beyond the visible horizon. This impulse, this reaching, is what we call prayer. For generations, we have been builders. We have raised colossal structures from stone and wood, from glittering glass and intricate mosaic, aspiring to create a perfect chamber for this sacred conversation. We designate certain corners of the world as holy, marking them with solemn reverence, believing that perhaps, just perhaps, the divine presence is denser, the connection stronger, the whisper clearer, within these consecrated walls. We build because we yearn for permanence, for a visible signpost in a chaotic world, a designated meeting place where the eternal can reliably intersect with the temporal. We seek the hush of the cathedral, the comforting shadow of the temple dome, the familiar scent of incense and aged wood, all to help us focus the scattered fragments of our attention onto the one source. And in these spaces, we find beauty, community, and a powerful resonance that echoes the prayers of countless souls who came before us. The impulse to build a shrine is beautiful. It is the human heart translating awe into architecture. We solidify the vapor of inspiration into granite, hoping to ensure that future generations will feel the same weight of the holy moment that first moved the founders. But in this very act of magnificent creation, there lies a subtle danger. The risk of defining the infinite by the finite space we provide for it. We assign the sacred an address, and in doing so, we sometimes forget that the mailing address is merely a suggestion, not a limitation on the divine's jurisdiction. We mistake the beautiful container for the boundless content it attempts to hold. But what if the construction itself, the beautiful necessity of the designated space, begins to imply a boundary? What if the act of defining a location for God inadvertently suggests that God is absent from all others? This is where the profound simplicity of the soul's conversation must take root, shattering the architectural illusion of separation. Imagine the universe not as a collection of separate points, but as a single, indivisible field of energy, consciousness, and love. If God is the foundational essence of existence, the very breath that moves the tides and quickens the dust into life, then by definition, there is no spatial separation. The divine is not confined to the end of a long journey or secured within a locked sanctuary. It is the immediate atmosphere of your being. It is closer than your own breath, more present than the light that touches your skin. It is the silence beneath the noise, the space between the thoughts, and the motive force behind all motion. The search for God, therefore, is not a quest across geography, but a dive into depth. To seek the sacred is merely to become aware of what is already and always present. If the presence of God is ubiquitous, if it is the is of everything, then the search for a dedicated space for prayer is an act of liberation, not limitation. It is the joyous realization that the entire cosmos is already consecrated ground. This means your body, in its fragile and magnificent complexity, is the only temple required. Your chest cavity is the dome, your pulse is the rhythmic chant, and the sincerity that moves through your blood is the sacred offering. The temple is internal, constructed not of bricks, but of presence. The spine is the central column. The heart is the glowing lamp, and the mind, when stilled, becomes the clear altar where insight dawns. This sanctuary is perfectly portable. It requires no reservations, no dress code, and no opening hours. It is open for conversation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, regardless of your location or circumstance. It is the ultimate and perfect democracy of faith. Consider the places where the heart most urgently speaks. It is rarely on a velvet kneeler under a rose window. It is on the edge of a jagged, uncertain cliff, when the soul is humbled by the vastness of the natural world and the precariousness of life. It is in the blinding clarity of a hospital corridor, where time stands still and raw hope is the only currency. It is in the silent, suffocating darkness of a crisis, where all human solutions have failed, and the only voice left to speak to is the one that holds the stars in place. These places, the moments of intense vulnerability, fear, or profound gratitude, are the true altars. They are not built by hands. They are constructed by necessity and baptized by authentic emotion. They are the impromptu cathedrals of the soul, built of nothing but necessity and true feeling. Your place of prayer is the commuter train, rattling through the gray morning, where you secretly lift a worry or a hope before the rush of the day consumes you. It is the kitchen sink, running hot water over last night's dishes, where a quiet thank you is whispered for the simple provision of food and shelter. It is the noisy playground, where you watch a child laugh, and the gratitude is so pure it rises like smoke without a single word. It is in the dense, silent heart of a forest, where the only roof is the interwoven canopy of ancient branches, and the connection feels as thick and rooted as the trees around you. It is the mountain summit, where the air is thin and the perspective wide, and you feel the true insignificance of your concerns against the backdrop of eternity. It is the chaotic, beautiful mess of your own bedroom, just before sleep or immediately upon waking, when the mask is off and the soul is laid bare. It is also in the relentless fluorescent glare of the cubicle farm, where the prayer is a silent plea for patience and meaning in monotonous labor. It is in the checkout line at the grocery store, where the simple act of blessing the food you are about to receive becomes a sacrament. It is under the pounding rain on the windshield of your car, where the sheer force of nature reminds you of a power larger than any worry you possess. Every point of stillness, every moment of genuine feeling, every time you pause to look up, whether in despair or in delight, that moment becomes a holy space. It is the intersection of the eternal and the immediate, and you are always at the crossroads. The great freedom offered by this understanding is the dismantling of ritualistic barriers. The conversation with the divine requires no specific posture, no rote-memorized language, no special garment, and no mediator between your spirit and the Creator's. It asks only for one thing: honesty. Sincerity is the only prerequisite for access. A prayer spoken in the rush of traffic, utterly genuine in its plea, carries infinitely more weight than a perfectly recited liturgy delivered with a distracted, performative heart in the grandest of chapels. The divine is not moved by eloquence, but by truth. The only language required is the language of the soul, which is universal and direct. This realization strips away the performance inherent in structured piety. It removes the need for spiritual theater. God is not interested in the perfect angle of the head, the precisely folded hands, or the flawless delivery of ancient text. What is sought is the raw, untempered feeling, the desperate cry, the sudden flash of overwhelming love, the quiet admission of failure, the vulnerable expression of fear. Prayer is the brave act of dropping the facade, of shedding the expectations of what a spiritual person should sound like, and simply speaking the truth of what you are experiencing and what you need. It is a direct wire to the source, and the connection is established not by physical proximity to a relic, but by emotional proximity to yourself. This emotional proximity is the true holiness. If the heart is the center of the self, then the heart must be the center of the dialogue. It must be the vessel that holds the raw, unedited truth of your existence. God is not interested in the polished, public version of your life, but in the vulnerable, often confused, messy reality of it. The conversation is not a lecture or a negotiation. It is an intimate, continuous sharing of the interior landscape. When this is understood, the spiritual life ceases to be an activity reserved for certain hours of the week and becomes, instead, the very fiber of your daily existence. This is the beauty of a faith unbound by geography. You are never away from your sanctuary. You cannot be locked out of your connection. If you are breathing, you are already standing in the holiest of holies. The constant awareness that God is available, always, everywhere, fundamentally changes the texture of your life. It turns every challenge into an immediate consultation, every moment of confusion into a seeking, and every flash of joy into an immediate, spontaneous outpouring of thanks. The world itself becomes a running conversation, a continuous, quiet dialogue that accompanies you through all the acts of your day, the mundane, the magnificent, and the sorrowful. It elevates the ordinary into the sacred. To wash a dish is to bless the water. To walk down the street is to meditate on the rhythm of creation. To face a moment of difficulty is to practice immediate, present tense faith. The deep lesson is this: the infrastructure of faith is not external, it is internal. It is the willingness to be open, vulnerable, and attentive. The divine does not require a gilded address. The divine seeks an open channel, a heart that is ready to listen as much as it is ready to speak. So let the great structures of faith stand as majestic symbols of aspiration and community, beautiful reminders of humanity's longing. Let them be places of teaching and collective celebration, monuments to shared hope. But never let them imply a confinement of the unconfinable, a restriction on the spirit that is everywhere present and fills all things. The grandest temple is merely a metaphor for the open heart. Your prayer is powerful precisely because it originates in the most authentic place you possess, your unique, individual beating heart. That heart is the true tabernacle, portable and ever-present. It travels with you across oceans, through deserts, into the noise of the marketplace, and into the quiet solitude of your sleepless nights. It is the only space you need to enter. It is the only bell you need to ring. The only instruction required is to close your eyes, open your mind, and speak with the utter, unshakable confidence that the one to whom you are speaking is already there, ready to listen, right where you are. There is no distance to cross, no veil to penetrate, no specific time slot to reserve. The door is always open, because the door is the space between your intention and your breath. This eternal access is the gift of unbounded grace. It is the liberation from needing more ceremony, more gold, more perfect silence. You need only what you already are: a soul with a sincere longing, a voice capable of truth, and a heart ready to connect. This readiness is the complete, self-sufficient prayer rug, and it unrolls instantly wherever you stand. Speak now. Speak always. The universe is listening. And the only place you ever needed to be, you already are.